Hey everybody, welcome to Before College TV Live. I'm Harlan Cohen. Today we have a college conversation with Purdue University students. Welcome Trista, Blerton, and Nikki. How are you all doing? Fantastic. Very exciting. These are not just students. You'll learn about why I'm talking to these particular students and just how much they know about Purdue. And just they're really nice, they're kind students. And they're from all over the country. Nikki is from Maryville, Tennessee. You guys can keep your mics on the whole time. It just makes it easier because, you know, we're going to talk and we're going to interrupt each other. And we're just going to have a great time because if we were all in a room together, we couldn't put our mute button on. I don't think we could. Trista, do you have a mute button for when you're actually in rooms with people?
I mean, some people wish that I do because I talk a lot. So, but I don't. I don't have a mute button.
No, but it's great. I love these conversations. The three of you, from what I understand, this is not your first time visiting with each other. You have a history. Is that right, Blerton?
Correct. Yeah, we all work together in orientation at Purdue.
Orientation. So you guys all help students to arrive on campus. Hey, Blerton, do me a favor because I would love people to get to know Trista and Nikki. And I find it's most helpful, as opposed to me introducing everybody, for you to kind of just go around and just let us know a little bit about Nikki and who she is and why you are such a fan of Nikki. All right. And then at the same time, I'd love for you to share what you think of Trista. And this has to be with your permission. Nikki, do you give Blerton permission to...
I would love nothing more than to hear Blerton hype me up. So let's do it.
And truth, all sides though. We got to be totally honest. And Trista, do you give Blerton permission?
100%. Let's do it.
Okay, great. And Blerton, are you comfortable with this?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do
all right,
this.
Man. So tell me a little bit about Nikki and just why she's so incredible.
So Nikki is someone that you can goof around with at like any time. But she not only has like that goofy side, but like she could get pretty like emotionally deep as well. Like one of Nikki's famous like just actions, I guess, would be like you're sitting one-on-one with her, and like if she notices like you're a little off or something, like she will like dig deep and like figure out what's wrong and like get to the root of your problem and like have you talk it out. And she's really helpful in that way. And I'm really glad to be working with her in orientation.
How long have you known her?
I've known her just this past year of working with her with Boiler Gold Rush. So
that's great. And has there been a time where Nikki has sat with you one-on-one, kind of read you, seen that there was a problem and addressed that problem?
More times than I could count. So.
Nikki, is there a recent problem that Blerton was dealing with that you can tell us about?
Ooh, I mean...
With Blerton's permission.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. As far as a recent problem, well, I mean, I think a lot of it recently has been related to the shift online. We all thought we were going to be working in person this summer, and now we're all remote, which a lot of people are facing that, whether that's, you know, from this past semester at school or work. So I think a lot of the conversations we've had of late have been about the difficulties and challenges we face, like being online and how to connect with, first of all, each other, like as a staff, but also our student staff, and, you know, having conversations about how we're going to connect with new students online. And we've had many conversations about that kind of topic.
Right. So more professional, just figuring out how you're going to connect. And then being Blerton mentioned that you're all staff members. So explain to those who aren't familiar with Boiler Gold Rush, with BGR, and your particular roles. Can you help us to understand who you are and what your responsibilities are?
Is that for me or Blerton?
I don't know. Who wants to answer this? I feel like Trista was like really hungry to answer this one. What do you think, Trista?
I mean, I can go ahead and answer. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do it. So our roles, we all are on the student orientation committee. So we call ourselves SOC, and we are the highest student level that you can get within orientation programs, specifically BGR. And so below us, we have team supervisors, and then below that, there's team leaders, and then the new students. So we're the highest you can get, and there's 9 of us. And then within that, we have specific committees that we're put into. And then within that, we work together and figure things out. So for me specifically, I'm on RNS, which is recruitment and selection. And my buddies are Paige and Param. And so we work together to do call outs, which is where people come and we give them information about the leadership role that they can be applying for. And then we also plan and create the interview process and the questions and the grading and how that all goes into it. And then Nikki and Blerton, they're actually buddies. They're on orientation initiatives. And so what that is we do this thing at Purdue in orientation called Free Zone. And it's just like to create a space where you can be vulnerable and share, and you can be free to be yourself without having fear of others judging you. And so those two take lead in that, and they plan a bunch of activities to do during our trainings with our supervisors and team leaders, and they have like just a bunch of things that they do to help us adapt that free zone mindset. I don't know if they want to touch on it anymore since it's their role, but that's what they do.
Right. Yeah, that sounds amazing. So you all are really some of the first faces that students will see when they arrive on campus, which is incredible. Blerton, I need to honor what we were talking about before and have you explain Trista. She seems, very complicated, interesting. I would, Nikki, you as well. But I would love to hear about Trista.
So Trista is probably one of the most like bubbly people I've met in my life, in the most positive way that like I can express that. If you meet like Trista in person or even like in the Zoom setting, like she'll have you like smiling it literally within 10 seconds, no matter how bad your day has been, like no matter how bad of a mood you're in. If you're around Trista, like your day will just exponentially be better. And not only that, like same with like what I said about Nikki, like Trista, same thing. Like there's more to her than just that as well. Like she's very emotionally intelligent as well, and like knows when people are off. And my point of saying that is like she could be really bubbly, but if she sees that you're like not having the best day, she'll like pay more individual attention to you and like get to the root of your problems as well. And so it's been an honor working with her as well, basically.
Oh, it's so nice. It sounds amazing. What's really cool is while you're in charge or responsible, you and the rest of the other SOCs are really helping students to get comfortable and find their people. Along the way, you've found each other, which is, I think, one of the things that people really take the most from is the relationships that you all have and how you're able to do that and to do it virtually, which is really amazing. Because I want to dig into how can you connect, how can you build meaningful connections when it's a virtual environment? So I think that more so than ever, there's more students who are nervous, they're concerned, they don't know people at Purdue. And I would love to hear about just some of the ways that you're doing that, just to calm people's anxiety and to give them a little bit of brightness and some of that sunshine that you guys are all capable of creating. Hey, who wants to tell me about Blerton?
I'll take this. We can both. Tristan and I can we get both? Yeah.
That'd be great.
Go ahead, you start.
Well, Blerton, it's so funny because you meet him and he like immediately describes himself. He's like, I'm so awkward. I'm like just an awkward guy, but he's really not. Like, he's just he's just a very comfortable presence to be around. Like he very much is not the type to put pressure if there's like silence in the conversation, which just happens naturally. He leans into that, and he like leans into just letting people be themselves, and he meets you where you're at, which I always like appreciate about him. And he's very like introspective and likes to take time to kind of process his emotions. And so when once he speaks, when he's speaking, like he means what he says, and he's very thoughtful. So,
yeah. Trista, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Nikki hit on a lot of what I was going to say. I was just going to say, like, Blerton allows you to, like, if you're around him and you're afraid to, like, be your true self, like, he allows you to be that person, and he accepts you for, like, who you are. And he is just so down to earth, and, like, he cares so much about his relationships with people, and, like, his friends are, like, his number one, and he would drop anything and everything to, like, help you out in that moment, no matter what. Like, he is just going to always be there for you, and, like, I think I can speak for Nikki and I that, like, we are both so thankful that we have someone like Blerton in our life, because he is an overall good person. He's so intelligent, he's down to earth, and he's just amazing.
So Blerton, what do you think of that? You think did they figure you out, or do they have you all wrong?
No, they figured me out, and
Yeah.
my heart is touched. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I know that you're an aeronautical and astronautical engineer, right? That's your major. And I see a picture of the moon behind you. So
Correct.
it's interesting to hear how down to earth you are, given your love for getting out of this planet. Like, leaving. It seems like you want to go somewhere, man. Like, there's so much love here. Like, why are you in such a hurry to do you
That's a
want to
good
tell?
one.
Well, so engineers are historically stereotyped as being less communicative, right? And there are many who are incredibly outgoing, but I know that a lot of times engineers tend to be a little quieter. I don't know if you would say that is true. Would you say that tends to be a true assessment, or is that incorrect?
So I would say I've been put in that box a lot in my life, especially going through high school and just like family expectations. There was a lot of like, we just expect you to be good at academics, and we don't necessarily expect you to form a lot of like friendships or anything, because like your career is all that matters. And that's one of the reasons that I chose to like get out of my bubble in New Jersey, because that's where I'm from. I'm an out-of-state student, so I've come pretty far to get my education at Purdue. And one of my reasons for that was getting out of that expectation. I knew if I put myself in the situation of being on my own, that I would be forced to get out of my comfortability and really develop that social side of me that I knew wasn't really to par or where I wanted it to be. And that's one of my reasons for joining orientation. And honestly, I've tried other organizations too, because honestly, like, my social relationships and my social development was just as important to me as getting my degree here at Purdue. And I like to branch out of like engineering, and there's definitely, I have a ton of friends in like the engineering department who are just like me, and like we've all been put in this box that we're not communicative and all that. And one of the best ways to do that is just to put yourself in that uncomfortable situations. And I feel like orientation is one of those organizations that does that the most. It puts you in that situation, and you have to like kind of talk your way like into it or out of it. But like, it really develops that social side that I've really focused on here at Purdue.
Yes. So you've been really willing to do that. I mean, you've sought that out. So in high school, and it's always helpful for people to have a sense of just who you were in high school, because a lot of people who watch this are in high school. So Trista, just give me a sense of who you were, your evolution from freshman year in high school to senior year in high school. And then even at the end, let me know why you chose Purdue.
Yeah, so I have changed significantly, and I say significantly like with a lot of emphasis, because I have changed so much from my freshman year of high school to senior year of high school to even now. I have always been like an outgoing, bubbly person, except it was really hard for me to make friends in high school, just because I didn't necessarily agree with some of the choices people were making. I had friends in high school. I just never hung out with them outside of high school, because I was weird with social situations like that. I was afraid to put myself in that uncomfortable situation, and I wasn't willing to do that. And so I've played soccer my whole life. So I dedicated basically my whole entire high school career to academics and soccer. And then I talked to my friends in between when I was at school. And I started to grow more outside my comfort zone as I was growing up and figuring out like what I wanted in life. And like when I started finding my true friends, which I didn't find until I came to Purdue. And so like once I came to Purdue, I realized that I'm not going to make friends. I'm not going to have a good experience. I'm not going to make college how I want it unless I unless I realize who I am and I am myself no matter what. Like if I pretend to be someone else, that's not going to work in college. I have to be myself, and that's where I'm going to find the people that will appreciate me the most. And so from freshman year till now, I have grown in a ton of ways. I've become myself more. I'm not afraid to hide how crazy and energetic and talkative and giggly I am. I accept it. And if people don't like that, then that's okay. Not everyone's going to like me. We're not perfect, and we all have our flaws. And so I chose Purdue because in high school, like I said, I wasn't comfortable with a lot of things. And I have an older sister who went to Purdue. And so I was constantly at Purdue, and I was familiar with it. And so that was one of the reasons why I chose Purdue, because I knew what the campus was like, and I already was familiar with it. My sister was going to be a senior here when I would have been a freshman. And so I would have had a family member here and someone that I could rely on all the time. And so that was a big reason why I came here. And then once my sister graduated and it was kind of just me with my friends and stuff, that's where I really found myself. And I'm forever thankful for that. So yeah.
Yeah. And you're from Mishawaka, Indiana. So
Yep.
How far is that from Purdue?
That's about a little over 2 hours. So not far, but far enough where I can be independent and become myself.
Great. So close to home. And you are a double major, interior design and human services. And then you're involved with SOC, of course, BGR. And then you play some intramural volleyball and soccer. Are you still doing that?
I was going to until we got sent home, for reasons, the virus and everything. Right. But I play intramural, like sand volleyball and like indoor volleyball with some friends. And then people who are involved with Boiler Gold Rush are like team supervisors and like SOC and stuff. We actually created an IM soccer team and we were going to play, but then it got canceled. So hopefully in the fall, they're all going to be willing to do that again. I'm hoping.
Right. So Trista, so you are from like just a couple hours away. So like you're an Indiana person, and it sounds like you really found your place. The active part of like intramurals, for people who are interested in getting involved with intramurals, is it hard to get involved with that when it's not COVID?
No, not at all. There's flyers everywhere. You get emails, your RA, your residence hall, like it's like they know everything. You can just talk to anyone and everyone and they'll be able to help you out. And if you don't know, you can always go to the COREC, which is the gym here, and you ask them and they would be more than willing to help you out.
So Pete, there's always someone to answer a question.
100%.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's hard to ask people though. I think that's probably the toughest thing when you're new, is worrying about what people think. But the three of you are clearly only going to think, I just want to help you, right? Like that's what you do. So Nikki, tell me a little bit about you in high school and how you ended up at Purdue.
Yeah. So my dad actually went to Purdue, was his alma mater. And if you know anything about Purdue grads, like without fail, each and every one of them are just so passionate about the university. So I grew up constantly hearing about Purdue and like how I was a Boilermaker and all this stuff. And I didn't really know what was going on at like, age 10 or whatever. But so all that to say, by the time I got to high school and was starting to think about colleges, I was like really hesitant to go to Purdue because I had the mindset of I want to be my own person. I want to chart my own path, chart my own course, like independent of my dad. Also in high school, I was very much like I was lucky enough to be able to go to the same school system all throughout kindergarten through my senior year. And I had a really close, tight-knit group of friends that some of which I had known since first grade. And so by the time I got to my senior year, from like freshman year all the way to senior year, I just had this big group of friends and we all hung out together. There was probably like 15 of us that we would, go over to each other's houses and go eat and things like that. And so I was very hesitant to kind of step outside of that bubble, and going to college was very daunting to me. I remember a lot of my friends were applying to 6, 7+ schools. I only applied to 3 and I was only really interested in 2. Purdue was,
Which 2?
Right. So Purdue, and then Wake Forest University, which is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I applied to that. And then the other school was Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. And I applied there because it was in Tennessee, so it was close to home. But I remember just being I honestly didn't even want to think about the college transition because I just was I had never had a move in my life before. And I was really hesitant to make that change because I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I was thinking, well, I've like cultivated these friendships for some of them like 12 plus years, and now I have to start all over. And it was just so scary to me. So I remember in high school, I've always been very like sociable. I love hanging out with people. I love like having a lot of friends around. That's how I was in high school. And I think I was relating like, quantity versus quality. Like I had a lot of friends, but like the more I realized after being at Purdue, the more I realized maybe some of them, it was just having people around versus actually forming those deeper relationships. So that's kind of been the biggest thing coming to college, is focusing more on like the quality of the friendships that I make versus how many friends you have. So I ended up deciding on Purdue. It was kind of funny because the more I looked into the university and the more my dad would tell me things, and I would kind of look into them for myself. Like I went on my on-campus tour. I really tried to hate it. I really tried, but I just loved it. I loved how many opportunities there were, and just the size of the campus. It felt so, even though it's a large school, it felt like there were still opportunities for me to make my own path. Like the school's big enough to where my dad could have done his own thing and I can do my own thing independent of each other. So, yeah, and I think the biggest thing that helped me decide to come to Purdue is that there was an opportunity for a study abroad for incoming freshmen. So I was actually able to study abroad in Peru and have my first class at Purdue be in another country before even arriving to campus. And that just showed me Purdue's dedication to having students experience intercultural like experiences and awareness, and getting to like step outside of your comfort zone. I love that Purdue puts such an emphasis on that. And I feel like I've been able to do that in so many ways.
Yeah, that's incredibly brave to go from being in this very close-knit community where you're surrounded by so many people, you have your group and you have your people, to all of a sudden committing to a school, then going abroad, not even knowing people, and then coming back to campus. How do you make your first friends, your first close friends at Purdue?
Yeah. Well, I will say for me, it honestly, it was not easy. Like it definitely took a lot longer than I thought. And I think it was because for me, having that tight knit group of friends, I was very much, I think like my first whole semester, honestly, I really didn't have a lot of people to like hang out with or talk to, because I was just thrown in this kind of, like you said, thrown outside of my comfort zone so much that I almost was like paralyzed by that. And so I was constantly, rather than focusing on like actually, whether that's like even like going down the hall and talking to someone on my floor, like I was constantly just talking to the people from back home. So I think like for me, the biggest thing that helped was honestly connecting with my RA at the time. She was very active on our floor and like always held events and things like that. And I knew, okay, even if I don't have anyone to like eat lunch with or like hang out with or talk to, I know at least like my RA will be there, and other girls on my floor would come and hang out if we had like a movie night. And that's where I ended up making like my first friends, was just people on my floor that would come to those activities that my RA did. And it was, even though it was small, on a small scale, just on my floor, it still felt like it was in some way stepping out of my comfort zone. So It was a first small step. And I think I had to do that before I went to, join organizations like Boiler Gold Rush, or, getting involved in Greek life and things like that. It was just about taking small steps first and just getting comfortable with those.
Yeah. Did you get sad? I mean, it sounds very lonely at first.
Oh yeah. I remember after my first semester, I remember telling my parents that I wanted to transfer. Because I didn't really have a lot of people. I went random with my roommate and with my first freshman year roommate. And I mean, we had a good relationship, but we just didn't really we didn't really hang out. I didn't really feel like there was only one other person from my high school that went to Purdue, and we weren't super close. So it was a very tough experience, as I remember like spending so many nights alone when I could have been like hanging out with people. And it was very lonely for sure. And I was not happy for a long time, but I think like I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because I think for me, just with my experience, it would have been like that anywhere, regardless, just because I was moving away from that comfort that I had always known.
Yeah. Blerton, did you deal with loneliness? Was it hard for you? Was it an easy transition?
I definitely also experienced a similar like loneliness / homesickness type of deal. I think that just comes with like, especially going out of state or just going away from home in general. One of the more difficult parts for me was the fact that like I couldn't exactly just take a car ride to Jersey if I was feeling off a weekend. When I first came to Purdue, with my parents, like they helped me move in and everything. But when they left, I had been completely on my own because I kept missing my roommate. Because whenever I would come back to the room, he would be like at Walmart, and like when I would go to Walmart, he would be in the room, type of deal. So one of my,
You ever meet him?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
one of one of my first like priorities as soon as my parents left was to go meet my roommate, and like I knew that would be my first like connection on campus because I'd be living with this person, and he was dealing with some homesickness too because he lives like 2.5 hours away as well, and so it's hard for him to go home also. So I literally like came back to the room, and he was kind of sitting at his desk a little lonely, a little sad, just because it's a big transition to deal with. And the first thing I did was ask him like, hey, do you want to like go to McDonald's and just grab a meal together? And so we both went to McDonald's, and we just talked out how we were feeling. And I remember that day like very like vividly, just because like I'm still friends with that roommate to this day, and I still live with him in this apartment, and like 3 years later, which is really cool. But it was that first like meal at McDonald's where we like hashed out all of our feelings, and like it was the easiest connection for me to make because we were going through like a similar experience and stuff. And after that meal, like we went through our like orientation week, our welcome week, and I made some friends in that group. And then the closest community I made freshman year at Purdue here was on my residence hall floor. A lot of the people there would stay outside their rooms and make purposeful connections. And like I said earlier, like one of my priorities coming to campus was that social development side. And what better way to do that than like meet a whole floor of people that I've never met before. So I made very intentional decisions, like because the RAs, like the residential assistants that Nikki briefly touched on as well, they hold like floor dinners where there's a set night of every week where it's just like an hour carved out to all go to the dining courts together and just get this huge table. And it's like literally like a Thanksgiving like family vibe. And it was really cool, like because the first time I went, I was very intimidated, of course. But again, everyone on like your floor of like your freshman residence hall, like everyone's going to be in similar shoes. Everyone's going to be looking for those connections, and that's the best time to put yourself out there and just meet people and see who you connect with, see who you don't connect with. Because one of the good things about college is if you don't really like connect with somebody, you're not forced to like hang out with that person. Because especially here at Purdue, it's such a large community that you're going to meet literally like hundreds of people, and it's really easy to build those connections. And I'm really glad that I took those steps to do that, because I'm still friends with those people that I lived with on my residence hall floor with. And
did you have a rule, like you were going to say hi to people, you were going to engage with people? If there's someone who wants to be intentional and really try and open up their world, and especially given the dynamics when this is happening, I mean, we got fall 2020 coming up, and there may not be a lot of the same gatherings. You know, there may not be a large communal opportunity to eat and dine with people. So I'm curious how you did that, and if there's a rule or something that other people can apply to their life as they go through this time with this, you know, variable of there may not be all of the same gathering opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say there's always flyers, there's always like advertisements around for events, and like those floor dinners I was talking about, there was like our RA would just like advertise it throughout the week in like group chats and stuff. So I would definitely like recommend like joining those group chats on those like groups that you come to Purdue in, and like whatever events they're doing, like no matter like how I felt about it, this was like my mantra. If like it made me feel jittery and like uncomfortable inside, I knew it was something that could help me grow and help me build those connections. Because it's often in those uncomfortable situations, just like your transition to college is for everybody, that you build those connections and you build that trust. And especially moving to this online this hybrid kind of deal that's going to probably happen at Purdue. Just joining like Zoom calls, and I know a lot of organizations are going to be moving like online, and so there's going to be a lot of like advertisements on social media, for example, and all that stuff, and still like going to those events held by those organizations and just joining organizations, even if they are doing things online. Like that's probably the best way to meet people on campus. It's seeking out those uncomfortable situations, like I said. And
Yeah.
there will always be like opportunities, whether we're online, whether we're in person. It's just putting yourself there. Yeah.
Because I see it where when people are doing these online organizational meetings, you're going to have all these faces on a screen. But then the thing is, you're going to see these faces around campus, perhaps, or there's going to be smaller subcommittees where if they have to limit the number of people who are together, it could be like 3 people or 5 people or 10 people. So I can see that happening. So that idea of just really being out there, having your face part of the group, I think it sounds like that's really important. Blerton, just to make sure that I covered it, from high school to college, tell us a little bit about like who you were then and how you chose Purdue.
So early in high school, especially like freshman, sophomore year, I was very much the student that would like sit in the corner of the room and kind of mind my own business. And because I was always taught and like it was drilled in me that like academics comes before anything and like prioritize that above all else. But it got to a point where like I was like good with academics, like I wasn't really having trouble, and something just felt missing when I was going through high school. And it really hit me senior year of high school when I realized I hadn't really formed that many relationships or formed a lot of memories of high school. And so what I did that year was like join every organization I possibly could. And I didn't spread myself too thin because I was taking a lot of tough classes to prepare me for college and stuff, but I devoted as much time as I possibly could. And one of the stories I like to tell is like I ended up joining this like theater group that was doing like a 1-act play in high school. And it was one of like the turning points for me, just like with my mindset and how because I always considered myself introverted and like 100% like I'm not good with talking to people. And one of the reasons I always say I'm awkward is because that's how I perceived myself in high school. So I kind of struggle with that identity a little bit to this day. But when I joined that theater group, I had joked with the director, like, hey, like I want to sing all my lines in the play. And he was like, this is a musical, you can't do that. Anyways, long story short, like I ended up singing all my lines in front of like 500 people. And this was still when I considered myself to be the student in the corner of the room. And now I have this like solo of singing in front of hundreds of people that I've never met, and I don't sing, so I wasn't a good singer.
What song was it?
It was actually Let It Snow, because it was like a holiday themed
Right.
play.
Do you still remember? Like, can you still sing it if we asked you?
I mean, no.
Don't go there. Huh?
It's just the microphone, and like if I had a better microphone, better setup, I definitely would.
I love it. Your mic, dude. Your mic's amazing. I can imagine you. Do you want to be an astronaut? Is that something that's on your?
That would be really cool. Yeah.
So
I
cool,
would love
dude.
to be an astronaut.
Because your mic sounds super. It sounds like something I could hear your voice communicating with, Kennedy or whatever. I can hear that.
Like Houston, we have a problem type of deal.
Yeah, and I can imagine you through this mic being on like a space station or somewhere, and singing
to the people on the ground.
Yeah, this could be a preview of that. I would love that. Okay, we won't go there, and we just won't do that. we're just gonna move on to the next thing. So Trista, it sounded like it was a little lonely for you in high school. It sounded like you had so much to offer. You're so bubbly and just have so much spirit, but you couldn't really find an outlet for that. Is that true? Was it a little lonely, and then college really was a place you're able to just become yourself?
Yeah, I still struggled in college because I think a lot of incoming students get like a false representation of what college is like. And so I've always heard and seen like college is the best 4 years of your life. You have so many friends, you make friends right off the bat, you get so involved in all this. And so like, I like to think that that was true. And so I came into college and I was like, yes, I'm going to have 10 friends my first day. And like, that wasn't the case. And like, kind of what Nikki said, I struggled making friends at first. Like, it was just really hard for me. And so like, but then once I realized like I'm in the reality now and it's not what people have always said what college is, that's when I was like, okay, let's figure it out. Let's start from the beginning and let's do it. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me if you agree with this. One of the most important things when you go to college is to release other people of your expectations. Meaning, I expect my roommate to be my best friend. I expect to make 10 friends. I expect to get straight A's in my classes. I expect everything to be one way. So it sounds like you agree with that. Nikki,
Yes.
You had a rough time in the classroom. You did not get straight A's.
Correct. Yeah. It was definitely a struggle for me to like, just transitioning like academic wise, high school to college is very different. I think for me, like a big thing with that, it was just the community itself. I mean, in high school, you're taking classes with like people you probably have had classes with for like ever. And then your teacher probably knows you on a very personal level. And like for me, having that community was really helpful and like studying with people. But then suddenly you're thrown in and I'm like, who do I study with? Like, how do I study? So, yeah.
So how do you do that? So, especially if you're dealing with some pretty rigorous academic circumstances, which Purdue is, I mean, it's a tough place to get into, and you know, you're around some really smart people. So what are some strategies, Nikki, right off the bat, and anybody can throw in for ways to study, help yourself to deal with the academic transition?
Yeah. Well, I think like for me, it was, like I kind of said, for me, the community was kind of the biggest part. So finding and trying as soon as you can ways to connect with other people that you're taking classes with. So that can even be like, I know my first semester and year, I wasn't taking classes necessarily with like people in my major. It was more gen ed classes, but just, so because of that, there were people, like so many freshmen at the time were taking the same classes, whether it was like our communications class or English. And there were even people on my floor that were taking the same classes that I was able to like talk to. So that was the biggest thing for me, because that everything else just kind of fell into line once I was able to like reach out and ask for help. Especially when in like larger lectures, talking to professors seemed really daunting at the time. So if I knew I had people to connect with, that was better.
So you found those people. Did you start study groups? Did you say, hey, do you want to study? I mean, who initiates that?
Yeah, well, I know in my case, my RA like was very helpful enough to put out a billboard thing and had classes that are standard for a lot of freshmen to take, and people would write down their names based on what classes, like if they were taking that class, so then you could like reach out to them yourself. So because she kind of like gave us a leg up on that, what I would do is if I saw someone's name, I would just go like knock on their door and ask if they like how they were doing and like if they had started the homework, and if they hadn't, maybe we could like do it together.
Right. Anybody else when it comes to initiating those study groups?
I could chip in. I think the easiest way for me doing that was just asking people like in lecture, like in my smaller labs, in my case, just like, oh, when are you doing your homework? Like, let's do our homework together type of deal. Cause like, especially like in how it felt in my major, like I always look for assistance and stuff. And I usually find that's the case for other people as well. And
Is it weird though? Is it like, if you're like, hey, you know, when are you studying? And you're talking to someone, do they think you're hitting on them? Do they think like, I mean, how do you do it so it's not weird?
Honestly, I've never had trouble with it.
Okay.
I think everyone's on the same boat, that they just like wouldn't mind having help, like doing their homework. And I've definitely been in the situation where I'm like, this person seems really cool, and like I would love to do my homework with them, but I'm too uncomfortable, and like I'll like back away. But as I've like gone through my time here, I've realized that, like I said, everyone's in the same boat. If you just like ask, they'll be more than happy to. And like worst case, they'll say they're busy or something. But
right.
I usually find that's not the case, because usually people are busy because of their coursework and stuff. So
right. So you just talk. I'm kind of hitting this a little harder just because I think, especially given the circumstances of having distance learning or online learning, there's going to be this thing. If I'm on campus, I want to form some type of study group, and I have to take the initiative to be like, hey, we're going to meet here and here. And, just kind of understanding the nuances, or even giving newer students just kind of a how-to, I think could be a really great way. And especially, you're all leaders. I mean, you do so many things. You're incredible. And I just want to just pause for a second and just talk about Boiler Gold Rush and what the orientation committee does, right? Your orientation committee, like you are there to help students to get comfortable with the uncomfortable so that they can share with you what they want in a safe way, knowing that you're not going to judge them and all you want to do is help them and connect them. And especially given, it sounds like you all had your moments during your transition. I mean, it makes sense why you do what you do, but for anybody who's watching, it's like all you three want, and the rest of the committee and the rest of the leaders, is to just help, right? Like, I mean, that's it. So if you're a student who wants to know, how do I form a study group, or you're a student who's feeling lonely, or a student who isn't quite sure how to navigate distance learning in this new environment, then just ask Trista, or ask Nikki, ask Blerton, ask your leader, right? Like that's why you're there, right? Yeah, I know
Absolutely.
I talk a lot, but it's like, I just think that's you are a bright light when students are dealing with so many changes. Trista, did you have anything to add on what I wanted to make sure? Nikki, I want to talk about how badly you did, how poor your grades were. Did you get any Fs or Ds, like on a quiz, let's say?
Oh, I mean, for exams, and quizzes, easy. Yeah, for sure. I even my freshman year, I actually failed a class that I had to retake.
Class?
Yeah. Huh?
What class?
Oh, it was a class that was actually for my major. It was an accounting class.
Those are hard.
Yeah, a math and just any type of numbers based discipline has never been my strong suit, and I struggled a lot, honestly, because I really felt like I didn't have a lot. That was one class where I just feel like I didn't really have a lot of support. And knew how to reach out.
Yeah, and it's hard. You are a School of Hospitality and Tourism Management major, and School of Languages and Cultures. So you've stayed far away from math as much as possible.
As much as I can, yes.
Right.
There's the occasional accounting or
Sure.
things like that thrown in, but yeah.
I failed freshman accounting too.
Oh,
I do.
I think it made me better.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm great. Like I can do anything. It was just hard. It was just really hard to get that help. Trista, what has been your most uncomfortable moment at Purdue? Okay, and I'm sure there have been many. Only because you're out there, not because strike me as uncomfortable. But you are a doer. You're an experiencer, and I'm making this question drawn out to help you think.
Yeah.
Okay?
So I was thinking before all of this, there have been many that I've thought about, because yes, there have been many uncomfortable situations, but for some reason, talking about our classes and everything, and how some classes are hard and stuff, it brought up an uncomfortable situation that happened to me my freshman year. So I was in one of my design classes, and it was a very, very rigorous course, very difficult. I was doing my best, as one would do, and it was the day our project was supposed to be submitted, and I don't really know how to describe. We had to build something, and it was only allowed to stand on 3 elbows. And so we had to design it on the computer, and it worked on the computer. And then I built it, and it didn't work. And so my TA, it was a grad student. They were the professor in that situation. And so he came over to my table, and I had to present it to him. And it didn't work, and I broke down crying in front of my whole class and my teacher. And I started saying, I'm gonna fail. And he just stood there, and he was like, and I was just crying, and I was like, can I leave? So it was really uncomfy because I was crying in front of people I didn't know, and my teacher, because something didn't work out, and yeah.
Did you go back to that class again?
Yes.
Right, you had to go back. That's the hardest part.
I had to go back. I had to go back.
Right. And you got through it, right?
I did. He was very understanding, and he like pulled me to the side once I composed myself, and he talked to me, and he helped me calm down, and he was like, "You're not a failure," and everything, but like I felt like a failure.
Oh, people are so nice when you have that moment. I think that when you have that breakdown moment, people tend to want to help even more.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you show that you're a little vulnerable, because you got into Purdue because, I mean, you're smart, you're capable. It wasn't a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Blerton, did you ever feel like an imposter? Did you ever feel like you weren't good enough? Did you ever question yourself and your abilities?
Absolutely. And I think that just comes with like the territory. I like the first thing that popped in my mind was just the fact that I was always a straight A student in my high school, and like I was like top 5 of my class, so I felt like on top of the world coming into college. And then like I came to Purdue, and I treated it like high school. And for example, I would study for my exams like 30 minutes before they happened, which is not the thing you're supposed to do in college. And my first round of grades was not up to par, and the averages were really high. And I realized that I'm going to school with a bunch of other overachievers because like you said, like Purdue accepts kind of like a really, really great crowd of people, which is good competitively, but it's hard to transition and accept the fact that like you might not be the top of the top, but just doing as good as you can is good enough. And that was one of the hardest things to accept, like coming to Purdue.
Yeah. I imagine also being a first generation student, I don't know if that factors into who you are and dealing with the shock of not doing as well as you're used to doing, because you don't have other people necessarily to lean on and say, Blerton, you're not going to do well, man. Like you're going to get those bad grades. And the first semester is more of like an adjustment. When you had those grades that you didn't expect and were feeling all those emotions, how were you able to work through that as a first gen student?
I would definitely agree with the fact that it was hard not to be able to like lean on like my immediate family, for example, because like my parents pretty much expected me to do as good as I did in high school. So when I got that first round of grades back, it was hard to explain that like it is an adjustment period, and I hadn't realized that. And one of the things that got me through that was honestly like self-motivation, and using that first round of grades as like fuel to like prove that I am good enough to like go here, and prove that like I was accepted here for a reason. And I've always used that self-motivating factor to like bring me back to where I wanted to be. So after that first round of exams, I knew I had to change something, like obviously. So I used the resources that Purdue offered, because whether you go to Purdue or any other university, there are so many resources to help you. There's help centers with their hours, and supplemental instruction, which is basically like after hours tutoring, and there's so many opportunities to bring you back to where you want to be.
So you then use those resources, and that was really what helped you to recalibrate and get back to the level you were used to achieving.
I would use those resources, and I realized that I needed to study more than just the hour before the exam, because I realized that was not like good enough to get to where I wanted to be.
Right. So you actually needed to study. Revelation.
Yes, exactly.
You stayed in. Nikki, what was your most uncomfortable moment, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I think for me, mine was more social. I talked a little about how I really struggled to make friends and have like a group of people to lean on. And then eventually ended up finding that group with people just living on my floor. But I remember towards the latter half of like the second semester, we ended up just having a falling out, this group of like girls that lived on my floor. And those like last couple of weeks of school were very uncomfortable, because we were still around each other all the time. And I remember some of them still like hanging out, and it was really uncomfortable to even like go into the communal bathroom on the floor and like see someone brushing your teeth. And it put me in a place where I felt like the place where I'm living, my residence hall, like it wasn't even like home anymore. It was just it just felt very toxic and like negative, and I didn't really know where to go. And so by that time I had met and started dating someone. And then I had met a couple other people. And at that point I had joined Boiler Gold Rush and felt that I had more of like a footing on campus. So it was nice to be able to branch out and have other organizations to go to. And so I'd say like that's how I got through it, but it was very uncomfortable to feel like I couldn't even go home and be 100% at ease because there were people that I was kind of like, I was going at it with.
Yeah. Were you in your sorority when this drama was unfolding?
No, I actually ended up going through sorority recruitment as a sophomore. So at this point I was not in my sorority.
Right. So you had one place, you had your Boiler Gold Rush place, but in terms of where you were living, that wasn't a place. One of the things that I always encourage students to do is to find their three places. So finding their three places are where you sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. So having your places. And I think that's really important so that if you're living in the residence halls and the people on your floor all of a sudden exclude you or don't agree with you, who do you have and where can you go? Where are your places? So it sounds like you had BGR, which is great. You found that. And then you had someone who you can hang out with because you started dating someone, which is nice. So you're able to have like a place to go and someone to be with. Trista, your places and any people, can you kind of just rattle them off?
Yeah, my places, like in people, like definitely like my Boiler Gold Rush fam, like number one. And then I would also say my second like place or like home. So POW is a academic building on campus, and that's where like all my classes are for my major because I have to be in a studio with computers and everything. And since my major is really small, I definitely met people right off the bat. So that's like also like where I found like a different group of people. So like I think it's good to have a variety of like a group of friends too on campus because if you just have like the one, then if like they're busy or you can't always see them, like you're not alone. Like I always have my friends from my major as well. And then I just have like other people I've met along the way.
And you're a double major in interior design and human services.
Yeah.
Great. And then Blerton, your people and places.
Yeah. So my places would definitely be one, like my roommate. Like I said, that was like the first connection that I made, and it was really nice to be able to lean on him, especially during like my transition period. Second place, I would say like my residence hall floor as a whole, because it was a very like tightly knit community, and those floor dinners were really nice to be able to go to and socialize with others and stuff. And then the Boiler Gold Rush family for sure, but that did happen towards like the latter half of my freshman year. Before that, I actually joined this organization called Habitat for Humanity, who like works to build homes for like the less fortunate and stuff. And that's actually the organization that I went to for a majority of my freshman year. And even though I didn't get like exactly what I wanted out of it, like reflecting back on it, like recently I've realized that it was really important for me because I would go to those meetings and there were a lot of people that like I just didn't connect with, which wasn't that big of a deal, but I still went to those meetings and still was able to identify with that organization, which was really important for me. And after that organization hadn't worked out, that's when the Boiler Gold Rush family like found me and I found them, and it was like a great fit for me.
Yeah, that's great. And going, showing up is so important. When it comes to money, some people are worried about being able to pay for college. Some people really struggle with that. Has that been a struggle for you, Trista? Was the money, or I'll wait till you settle in, that your knees are getting sore. I mean, I'll go to Nikki. Nikki, when it comes to paying for college, was that something that's been hard for you, or has it been easy for you?
I will say it has been on the easier side. I've been lucky enough to have support from my family to going into college. So I definitely acknowledge I've been very lucky and privileged to not have to worry about that. But it has also been eye-opening being at college and being able to interact with people that's not always the case. And I think if anything, it's just made me like think about it more from other people's perspective. But from my standpoint, it has been an easier side.
Yeah. And even though you've been able to get help to pay for college, when students are dealing with the financial hardship, given your position, how are you able to respond? Can you help them? Are there resources to help them?
Yeah, I would say like definitely pointing them to resources on campus, because I know if I'm not the best equipped to answer a question, I don't just want to end it at that. I want to try to connect students or others with resources that might help them. So anything like whether that's talking about financial struggles, so like some type of like counselor or like the office of the dean of students, things like that, or like the bursar's office if they have like a logistics question that's on campus. So everything like logistic wise.
Yeah. Blerton, you were telling me that you had some scholarships, you had some financial aid. Is that something we can talk about?
Yes. Being an out-of-state student and everything, like my family has had to take out like loans and stuff, so it hasn't been like the easiest financially, I would say. But one of the biggest aids in just financially paying for like Purdue and tuition and everything has been like applying for the FAFSA, because it's free, number one, and number two, it makes you eligible for like a bunch of different scholarships and like loans with like lower interest and stuff. And that's how I got access to my scholarships. I've applied for like separate like private scholarships because there's a million different websites that you could just like fill out your personal information, like your year, your high school GPA, or what you've been involved in, and it'll give you like a list of private scholarships that you could apply for. But a majority of the scholarships I've received have been from the FAFSA, which again is free to fill out and only takes like an hour or two of your time.
You did that in high school. You do that every year. You fill out your FAFSA, right? And you get.
I did that every year, yeah, and it helped out a ton.
So when people hear about loans, and I don't know if Trista, if you take loans, and people get really uncomfortable sometimes when it comes to talking about money. But it's like you got to pay for college. You got to figure it out. The loan part, is that something that was intimidating? Is it something that's easy for you to navigate? How do you deal with that?
So the biggest thing for me personally was just the fact that I wanted to help out as much as I could. Like I realized that my parents were doing so much for me to be able to come here that I didn't want to have to ask for more like minute things, like for example, the new like Nintendo Switch just came out, right? And I was interested in that, but I know my parents are financially supporting me like so much and stuff that like I would rather be able to support myself on those more like I would say like stuff for my like own pleasure. So just having like a part-time job like over the summer to get enough money to be able to indulge sometimes and not have to like ask my parents for additional help has been like big for me.
Right. So do you work during the school year too?
I've never had a part-time job during my time at Purdue just because my academic rigor is a lot.
Yeah.
So what I've always done is I've always worked a lot over the summer to save enough money to be able to like support myself in some ways as well.
Yeah. Do you game? Are you a gamer?
Yeah, these are some gaming headphones.
Well, I could tell, man. You got like a nice setup.
Not to flex, but
no, I could tell. I like them. What game do you play? What games do you play?
Recently, it's been just like Apex Legends and stuff like that. To be honest, I haven't had a lot of time to game at my time at Purdue.
There's no judgment. It's like I love it because I think it makes you more relatable. Like
quarantine has brought me back into the gamer culture, and I've never been prouder to say that.
It's big, man. And it's like I think people can use gaming as a way to actually meet people. It's like there's so many people who are gaming. Like I got kids and they'll like FaceTime in game and they'll video chat in game. But I think the idea of gaming, this is good, man. Okay, let's do this one. So if you're a gamer, let's speak directly to some gamers. They're coming to Purdue. They love gaming. How can you use gaming as a way to connect with people actually on campus and not just be insulated in your gaming world? Give me a how-to.
I would say, like you just said, like not to be like ashamed about it, because like obviously there's this like stereotype around like gaming and stuff that you're antisocial, you're weird, you're this or you're that. And just talking with my friends and just like let's just say you're coming to campus and you're in a Zoom call, right? And just like casually mentioning that that's one of your hobbies, then you could find out other people who have the same hobby. And honestly, I think just being able to game and talk in that way is just as fun as like going to like a club or something. Like, I don't know, just being like honest and upfront about it is probably the best way to be able to immerse in that. Like my residence hall freshman year, a lot of those people happened to like game on the side as well, and we had some fun doing that, like just on our laptops and stuff, and just de-stressing, especially at like once you come to college, you realize like the week is very like it takes a toll on you, and like every night you have to have a little bit of de-stressing time, and gaming is a great way to do that, especially with other people in a social like gathering.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think for all of you, I mean, just when it comes to this fall, of just asking people to really have a good sense of, just some of their interests, of like making it safe for them to share their interests, and then finding ways to find these smaller groups where they can be able to connect in ways where if there aren't these large group gatherings. I think that's going to be a really interesting challenge this year, of like really making it safe for people to share those things that give them joy, so that they can connect with other people to find those places to find that joy. I know that we're supposed to wrap a couple minutes ago. We're going to wrap in just a minute or two. Are you guys okay? Do you have to go right now, or are we cool for just another minute or two? Okay, cool. You're really fun to talk to. I think, it's the thing about you guys and just who you are is that you make it so easy. You make it easy for people to be able to share what they want. I think the idea of really going after what they want is so important, and being confident and having the courage to be able to express that and make it safe. Okay, so a couple things that people always want to know when it comes to a Saturday night, okay, or a Friday night, whatever night you're doing your thing, like what's a typical Friday or Saturday night look like for a first-year student, and how do you find someone to hang with? Like, I think that's really scary because no one knows anyone. So give me a sense of how to have a good time, and what those boundaries are, and what life looks like at Purdue.
I can start if y'all want. So for me, Saturday like evenings, I like to tell, like freshman year, I told myself I'm going to dedicate that night to like no homework. I'm just going to like do whatever I want, because the whole week you're just constantly going to class and doing homework, having quizzes, studying, and it gets very tiring, like mentally and emotionally. And so Saturdays, no matter like how much work I necessarily had, I would tell myself, put it away, go get like ice cream or food or something, like with your roommate or like the friends that you've made, like contact someone in advance. And I would just go out and I would get food with them, and then I'd come back and like watch a movie and just like relax. That's like the main thing that like I did on my Saturday evenings. Just like take a moment for yourself, because like your mental health is the most important thing, and you have to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, like you're not going to succeed. And so I definitely made sure like I had those nights where I just relaxed, and it was good. I still do that.
So Saturday night, and then you're relaxing, you're doing your own thing. Do you feel pressure to go out and party? Like at Purdue, do you feel like you need to drink, or do things that maybe, are illegal?
For me, no, because the people that I surround myself with, they're like good influences on me, and like we all share things in common. So like we don't feel like we have to be that like stereotype and do those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you have those. You were intentional about who you surrounded yourself with.
Yeah, for sure.
Choices that work for you. Who else wants to tell me about a typical weekend, which is not a typical answer, but it's just something to help those who are trying to figure out what they're going to do, visualize that.
I can answer. So it was kind of funny for me, like freshman year, especially when I think back to like what I would do on Friday and Saturday nights, because that's when you like are, you go and hang with your friends, or you go and blow off steam. But like for me, that first semester, like I didn't really have a lot of friends. So what I would do, I like laugh thinking about it now. I would like meet with like sort of acquaintances that I had met. Maybe like we ate dinner together, or like people on my floor, just people that I knew in my residence hall, like because we had a class together. And we would literally just like walk around on campus and just go on these long, like probably walk like a good like 2-3 miles, like on Friday and Saturday nights, and just walk around and like see what was happening. And it sounds kind of lame, but honestly, doing that was, you never, like, because Purdue is situated, it's not in a city, it's like its own city, you really never know like what's going to happen and like who you're going to meet. So in doing that, I remember there were many times where I would just literally be walking around with people on campus, and we would run into like another group of people who like, and somehow I had met them through like our BGR week, or like I had a class with them and like would connect with them that way. Or sometimes I would run into like, there would be something happening. Like I remember there would be like, there's like a concert happening, or like I remember one time walking past our Memorial Mall, which is like a big central part of campus, and someone was having like they were throwing paint at each other. So we just joined in and like did that. Like you really never know what's going to happen. Huh?
You just picked up paint and just started throwing paint.
Yep. Yeah. It was just like people were just throwing paint at each other. And I was like, this looks fun. So like there were always things like that happening. Like, yeah. Some organizations doing something, or like they're having a cookout or things like that. And if anything too, it was just nice to be able to like just get out and walk around and like talk with people and like connect with people and things. So I would say that.
Yeah, just going for a walk. I love it.
Yeah, and just like meeting new people, and just sorry.
No,
yeah, just going for a walk and kind of like seeing where the night would take us, and seeing who we would meet and like what would happen.
Seeing where the night takes you.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is kind of funny thinking about that now, because like I just like where my mind was at when I would do that. But yeah, so those are like a lot of fun memories, even though it was kind of a tough year for me. Those are some fun memories. It's just like those nights where we were just kind of placing all our bets on the table and just, seeing what would happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, again, removing expectations of the night. It's not like anything needs to happen. We're just going to be. And whatever happens is just going to unfold. And these weren't even close friends. These were just people who you kind of got to know, and you're like, we're going to go for a walk. So It just happened. Blerton, what about you?
I think what you mentioned before about like finding your places really resonated with me, just because I think those are the people like from those places that I would want to like connect with and socialize with on like a Friday or Saturday night. And I really resonate with what the other two said as well. Just having that time set off from like not worrying about like academics or homework. Sorry, Mom, if you watch this. But just having that time to just socialize. And honestly, like one of the great things about Purdue for me as a freshman was the fact that our recreational center was open until midnight, because I could go with my friends on a Friday or Saturday night to the basketball courts and just play some pickup games, and because that's one of the hobbies I love to do, and I found other people had an interest in it as well, so that's what we did. Or just having like a board game night, or like whipping out a Nintendo and like playing some Mario Kart or something. Like that was fun too. I think it's so important to have that mental health break, like Trista mentioned, because the week does take a toll on you. Like you have to take a pause and just enjoy college a little bit too, and enjoy the relationships that you're forming and the relationships you've built. Yeah,
I think that part of really taking care of your mental health is really hard. When it comes to counseling service, when it comes to support services, has that been something you've taken advantage of? And just, for me, I talk a lot about how, I go to therapy and have a therapist, and I love emotionally vomiting all over someone who doesn't have the same last name. It's like I could just say whatever, and it's like I leave. And I feel better. Have you taken advantage of any of those resources, and are they easily available?
I have. I know, like my freshman year, not only with it just being very like tough to transition, but I had like kind of with that drama, there was a lot of like pretty traumatic experiences that kind of went down in my life, and I really just needed like somewhat like a professional to talk to. So I utilized both our like we have like it's called CAPS. It's center. It's like counseling and psychological services on campus. And then also there's another organization called CARE, and that's like Center for Advocacy and Resource Education. I utilized both of those my freshman year, and I had like nothing but positive experiences, just because I had been kind of similar to you, Harlan. Like I've been pretty vocal about therapy like my whole life. And so like in high school even, so I was pretty familiar with the concept. And I think for me that made it like more comfortable going in, because that already felt almost like one of my places, because I knew kind of like what to expect, and I knew I could just like get thoughts out.
Yeah, those people are there for you. Blerton, I'm curious also as a first gen student, for a lot of first gen students I find tend to be less reluctant when it comes to sharing their feelings. I think sometimes it's almost an admission that maybe I'm not supposed to be here or I'm not good enough. I don't know if that resonates with you.
That definitely resonated. I did not personally like use those services, but I can say from like testimony from my friends who have gone and people I'm really close with here at Purdue that I've gone have not regretted it, and it helped them a ton. So it almost makes me a little regretful that I didn't go to like those services when I was going through my homesickness and going through all those things. I more so utilized like my residential assistant on my floor. That's the main resource I used because he may not be like a therapist or like trained to be one or whatever, but same idea. Like he didn't have the same last name as me. He didn't like I could go to him and like confide in him and tell him everything I was going through.
What's his name?
His name was Thomas Sullivan.
Yeah, and he was one of the most important people in your early college experience.
Yes, and I still talk to him to this day. Like I became really good friends with him. He's since then graduated, but love talking to him just because he really helped me out in a important stage in my life. So
yeah, I love that. And I think that for students who meet all of you, it's like at first you come in here being these really important SOCs and it's like, whoa, who are they? But then the idea that in a year or 2 years, you could still be in touch with the students who you haven't even met yet, who you don't even know yet. And I think that's the beauty of the family of Purdue, of BGR, of just being part of this group, which is really wonderful. I'm going to wrap this up, but I want to have each of you offer advice to freshman you. If you could go back to freshman you who arrived on campus at Purdue, something that you worried about, something that you spent a lot of time and energy being concerned about, that in retrospect, you're like, gosh, that just wasn't the best use of my time. What is something that you would tell you to help you to have an easier experience and love yourself even more and get everything you can out of that first year? Trista, it's been a while since we've talked, and I know you like to talk from what you said.
I do. I love to talk.
Right, and you've been like really reserved, like
I know. I know.
it's there's so much that I know you didn't say, so there's so much more you can say.
Yes.
But I would love to hear what you would tell you, and you could even add whatever you want to that as well.
Yeah, so if I had to give my freshman year self advice, like in college, I'm very open with it. So I got diagnosed with severe anxiety, and so I didn't go and get help until after my freshman year at school because it was so bad. I never left my room because I couldn't. And so if I could like go back and tell myself, it would be like realize that like it's okay to not be okay and to like go and get the help you need, because if I would have done that sooner, my freshman year would have been completely different, because now I'm able to go and do things that I wasn't able to do before. And so that's probably one of the biggest things, is to be okay with not being okay, because that makes you who you are. And that's why I tell people about it, like that I have anxiety, because there's nothing wrong with it. That makes me who I am. And so I see no shame with it, and I like to help people as much as I can. And so that's what I would tell myself, is just it's okay, and to get the help you need sooner rather than later.
Yeah. How did that anxiety begin? I mean, it sounds like it was really debilitating. Like you said you couldn't even leave your room.
Oh, yeah. So I've had anxiety my whole life, except it really skyrocketed once I got to college because I was away from home, and I never went away from home. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, like, if you have anxiety, you know what that is. Like, I would have at least five anxiety attacks a day, and I would like have to leave class because I was having anxiety attacks. Like, people would have to come find me and like help me walk home. And like,
what does that feel like to have an anxiety attack?
A ton of things. Like, you feel like the room is spinning, you're sweating, you can't breathe, you're shaking, your stomach hurts, your chest hurts, like your heart's going 1,000 miles an hour. It's just like everything at once is happening to you. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand, like, people who don't necessarily understand it as well, they're like, oh, just relax, like it's going to be okay. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Like your mind doesn't just shut off. So
Yeah. And then when did you recognize that what you were experiencing was an anxiety attack, and how did you get help?
I experienced it probably like mid freshman year when I just like my roommate, I love my roommate from freshman year. She's great. And she was realizing that like I just like wasn't doing well, and we played soccer growing up together, and she was realizing that like I just like wasn't myself. And so she was like, maybe like, you know, maybe you should like talk to someone. So then I finally like realized I had enough since I wasn't able to do anything at college. And so I talked to my parents about it. And then that summer when I went home, I went to my family doctor and we got everything figured out. And it's been great ever since.
That's remarkable. And so that first year was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like for all of you, I mean, it's a big transition. And now you're able to manage your anxiety, you're able to interact, and you can do everything you want to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Sometimes when I have this conversation, I'll talk about how having these things happen are a gift. And someone said, how could this be a gift? How could anxiety be a gift? Or how could whatever I dealt with be a gift? But the gift is that you were given an opportunity to see it, to recognize it, to manage it, and then to be in this place now as a rising senior, right, Trista?
Yep.
Being in a place where you're surrounded by all these amazing people. Mm-hmm. So I think it's great. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because I know it helps so many other people who maybe are a little uncomfortable to know that this is just you in the future, whoever you are who's feeling anxious. Could be, and there's so many. If you don't see yourself here, then these people can help you to meet somebody who you can see yourself in, which I think is so amazing. Blerton, you can let me know, what advice would you give you?
I would tell myself just to like follow my gut and that everything would fall into place. I spent a lot of time my freshman year, and especially my first few months, worrying so much. Would I identify with the university? Would I be proud to be a Purdue Boilermaker? And how I would do like academically, when like truly like I wish I had someone to just tell me like, you got accepted here for a reason, and like everything will work out. If I hadn't spent that like first few months like worrying so much, I probably could have like even looked into more like organizations and stuff. But as everything does, it eventually did work out. I eventually like found my place, found like where I belonged, and got comfortable, and that's when I was able to truly like build on my Purdue experience.
So you and Nikki are involved with, tell me about the free zone. Explain that to me in detail.
So free zone is basically this environment of acceptance and vulnerability that we like to garner in not only our orientation program, but on Purdue's campus. Because we know everyone comes from a lot of different backgrounds. You might come from a background where a lot of people look similar to you, for example, like it was in my case. And the point of free zone is to come to Purdue's campus and be able to realize that there are people that might not be in your shoes coming to the university, and just being able to accept them and encouraging being vulnerable with your past so that you could build those deeper connections. Because one of the things we really believe in here at like Boiler Gold Rush is that if you're vulnerable with your past experiences, that's what will garner that deeper connection that you're looking for during a short week of orientation.
Right. So making it safe for people to really be authentic and to feel good about who they are. And then knowing that if somebody identifies as LGBTQ, or if there's racial diversity or ethnic diversity, right? Sometimes it's like I'm an author. It's like, this is great. This is my own imperfection piece. Like sometimes I can't find the word or I like mess it up. But when it comes to ethnic diversity, and when it comes to religious diversity, if I didn't mention that, but all those pieces that make whoever you are you, clearly there's a place for you at Purdue. And I know there are groups and organizations and other places where you can connect people to find those like-minded individuals while meeting lots of different people as well, which I think people don't recognize. I just have such a love for Purdue. I didn't tell you I'm an IU grad. Do you know that? I am.
I
Yeah.
knew that.
You knew that, Trista? I kind of wanted to keep it a secret till the end, just in
I
case.
watched one of your TED Talks.
Oh, nice. Okay, so yeah, thank you. IU was wonderful and gave me a lot of opportunities, but Purdue is where I first started speaking, and it's where I ran my newspaper column ran in the Journal and Courier, and it really helped me. And I actually used to speak at BGR forever ago. So anyway, I love Purdue. I think what you do is amazing. And enough about me, Nikki. So let's wrap this up. What about you? What would you tell you, freshman you?
I think my advice to my freshman year self would be just try again, just simple as that, because there were a lot of times where I would like talk myself up to put myself in situations where I might be uncomfortable, whether that's like talking to someone new or trying to join something or like apply for something. And there were a lot of no's, like people just not texting me back when I would like ask to hang out, or like rejections from clubs, things like bad grades. And I think a lot of myself in that moment was like, well, I did all this and it didn't work out, so I'm just gonna like retreat into myself and not do it. But I think like not letting the no stop you is a really important lesson that I had to learn, and just like trying again. And just because it didn't work out the first time doesn't mean it might not work with either a different group of people or trying it in a new way, looking at it from a new perspective. Those have been some of like the most rewarding times when I've like persevered and like looked at things in a different way than I had. So I would just say that, just like try again, keep going.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I'm also an expert on rejection. And I think that facing it is just one of the hardest things, but also one of the most incredible ways to grow. And all of you have been so open and so honest, and I'm so grateful. Trista, Blerton, Nikki, if students are watching this or anybody's watching this and they have questions about Purdue or you or anything we've shared, or want to connect with people who you may know, and these students know a lot of people, are you comfortable with people reaching out to you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would you think
Absolutely.
it's weird? Would you be like, ew, like why? No, you want to answer questions, correct? And you like doing this. It gives you joy. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I like to really emphasize that, because I think people, even after we've talked for this long and seen just how amazing you are, can sometimes be a little bit nervous. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you wanted to share, just about you, about Purdue, or anything, or do you feel like we've covered it? Or damage control? Anything we need? I don't think we need to do any damage control. I always like to give people an opportunity. So with that, we're good? Okay. We are good. You are so generous. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you all for joining me on Before College TV. This has been Purdue University, a college conversation. I'm Harlan Cohen. Thanks so much, and I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thanks, everybody.